Your calendar is not just a place for meetings. This is the blueprint for your life. This is how you are spending your time, and our time is our most valuable asset. Welcome to Girls Make Bank, the podcast show for women who want to learn the art of selling for business and for life. I'm Jack White, seasoned sales professional, entrepreneur, and owner of Honeybees Group. Come back each week to hear inspiring stories from some of our favorite business owners. Learn how to take the ache out of selling and make bank. We're all in this together, so let's get started. Welcome back to Girls Make Bank. Today, I am sharing something super practical with you, which is how I plan my calendar for success every week. So not just the what, right? But the how, the why, and the real life tweaks that I've made to help me stop feeling overwhelmed and start feeling in control. So if you have ever felt like you have a to-do list that runs you, if you are a solopreneur like me and you just are doing so many things in your business and also in your personal life with your family or your friends or your hobbies, this episode is for you. And I want to give you some frameworks to think about how to map out your time and how to map out your week in a way that feels manageable and actionable and can take some of that mental load off of you, which, at least for me, can really drag me down and drag my business down with it. So let's get into it. Now, I have been a huge fan and advocate for time blocking on and off throughout my adult life. I love deep working sessions. I love the predictability of my calendar. I love being able to block off time for important but not urgent tasks. If you don't know about that concept, we should talk about it another time. It has really made an impact in my business and in my life. I learned about calendar blocking early in my college career. And it's something that I've gone back to many times throughout the years. Now, if you are like me, everything, and I mean everything, is on my calendar. If it is not on my calendar, it does not exist. And I have learned how to use my calendar as a really handy to-do list, as a dinner guide as to what we're making for dinner, as an organizational tool that keeps me on track. And when I use it the right way, it can be life-changing for me. And so this year, I am recommitting to my calendar system. I am recommitting to time blocking because I'm really focused on buckling down and growing my business. So here is how it works. As a woman of a certain age, I have started to pay attention to my energy levels. When are there times that I like to do more quiet work in my business? When do I feel super energized to be quote unquote on in front of clients? When is my mind most sharp? And I have mashed that up with times that I try to set work off, when I try to shut down from work and I really want to be present with my family. So I have standing blocks of time on my calendar. And I have also tried to adjust my schedule to work around my energy levels. So let me give you a couple examples of how that works. First, I have prioritized going to bed at an earlier time. This has less to do with my calendar and more to do with ensuring that I'm setting myself up for success the night before. So I'm not scrolling on social media at night, or at least I try not to. And instead, I prefer to have some quiet time and read in bed before falling asleep. I also want to make sure that I'm scheduling tasks at optimal times for me and my energy. So I used to block out my mornings for client calls or prospect calls. The mornings are when I am most sharp. It's when my energy level is highest and I would say, the most clearly thinking. And I would save that time for clients. What was happening is by the afternoon, I was kind of drained. All of my good energy was sucked up, and I didn't want to do that deep work that I had scheduled. And so a lot of things just kind of fell off of the to-do list and weren't getting done. So what I've done is I've flipped that, where I schedule my deep work for the morning. I'm freshest. I can get a lot done in a short amount of time. And I do all of my client calls in the afternoon, which I have found that I actually can still show up and be there because I love doing one-on-one work and I love having calls with people. And so it almost like gives me this boost of energy that I need in the afternoon. And so really when you're thinking about creating your schedule, being mindful and knowing yourself, your energy level, what your rhythms and flows are will help you set yourself up for success. So that's one example. The other thing I have done is I've blocked out really meaningful things that I don't want to miss. So, for instance, every week, my son's school does an open classroom day. So, for 30 minutes in the morning, first thing in the morning during drop off, we can go into the classroom, see what our children are working on, mingle with other parents. And it's just a great time for us to be able to commute to school together, to get to see him interact with all of his classmates and his friends. I get to spend some time talking to his teacher every week, and I get to build community with the other parents that he is growing up with these families. And so that is protected time for me, and I block that off on my calendar every single week. I don't get to go every single week, but it is something that I block off. So you can see how I'm using my calendar as protected time and space. Now, I have a lot to pack into, like most of us, 24 hours. So here's how I plan and schedule that time to be as efficient as possible. Now, I, number one, take my trusty 8.5 by 11 printer paper that you can use scratch paper, you can use a notebook, whatever it is for you. And I sit down with a piece of paper and I basically stream of consciousness write down everything that is weighing on my mind. Meetings, projects, errands, tasks, things to do. I look at my calendar over the next 2 weeks and see what meetings, what events, what things I have coming up. And I map out everything that I need to prep in order to get those things done. And sometimes it ends up being, a long list, maybe front and back and another front of printer paper. But there's something really cathartic about getting it all out of my head and onto paper that makes the next steps really easy. So once I have everything on paper, that takes about 10 minutes. And then I cross check that with my calendar for the next 2 weeks to make sure that I'm not missing anything that I need to be prepping for. I cross check that with my quarterly and yearly goals for my business to make sure that I am not missing any of that important work that maybe is not top of mind, maybe not urgent, but things that I need to do to move things forward in my business. And then for me, I cross reference it with the Notes app on my phone. That's the day to day kind of catch all for me of all the things that need to get done as I'm going about my day. I just open up my Notes app and I have one tab where I just write, okay, make a doctor's appointment. And so I make sure that all of those things are on my list. About 10 minutes to do this, usually, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but it really saves me hours of stress. And just being able to get all of that out on paper takes a lot of that emotional burden off. Okay. It's always better when it's out of your head and somewhere else. The second step in planning my calendar is to segment all of these tasks into buckets. So this is how I sort my to-dos. I love a good bucket, okay? So let's put all of these things into buckets. The first bucket is what I call 90-second tasks. So if you're anything like me, you have about 100 things on your list that take about 90 seconds each to get done. This could be making a doctor's appointment, refilling a prescription, booking a dinner reservation, booking a flight, signing up for school camp, sending a birthday card, whatever it might be. I circle all of these tasks first and I create a 45-minute block on my calendar, typically at the beginning of the week, and actually write in the notes field in my calendar all of those 90-second tasks that I need to get done. So typically on a Monday or Tuesday afternoon, all of that stuff is dumped off of my plate into the calendar, and I know that I have a set time to do it. Now, 45 minutes might not sound like that long, but I believe in the power of time constricting, and I love to play this little game with myself to see how productive I can be in a short window of time. And you will be shocked at how much you can actually get done when you remove all of the distractions and you just focus on doing this. So, I create a 45-minute window. It's usually Monday afternoon, and I label it 90-second tasks, 90-second to-dos, and I put everything in there. And what that does is really releases the emotional burden of having to keep track of 20 different things in my mind. So that is step the first bucket in step 2. The next bucket is the delegate bucket. So, this is when I look at the list and I say, okay, what of these things do I not need to be the one to do? Okay, what can I delegate? Now, I happen to be in a season of life and in my business where I don't have a lot of people to delegate to. I have pulled back a lot of the operations from my business to myself. I've just hired someone to create a new onboarding and sales communication system for me. And so I'm doing a lot more in my business than I maybe have in the past. But if there is anything I can delegate or anything that I'm depending on somebody else to do before I can do the next step, while I'm planning my calendar, I will do something. I will usually draft an email or put the note together with all of the details, and I will schedule the email as a send for Monday morning or whenever it is I need to send it to them. Because there's nothing worse than being somebody's Sunday scary by like sending an email on Sunday night or Friday evening whenever I'm doing this. But I do want to make sure that it is out of my head, off of my plate, and I've either delegated it or have let someone know that, like, hey, this is what I need from you before I can do my part. And I'm scheduling that email. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's done. Okay. So, that is bucket number 2, delegate. The third bucket in my calendar is deep work. And this is one of my favorite buckets. I love a good deep work session. When I can get into a groove and I can block things out and really get heads down, I can make magic and I love that. So, what goes into my deep work bucket? Sales activities that I need to do for the week. What content am I creating for the week? Block it out. What client meetings or workshops am I prepping for? Block it out. Guesstimate how much time I need to create the materials. I block it out. This is especially important. This time is especially important for me to do because I have some open links to my calendar where people can book calls for me during my free time. So if I'm not deliberately booking my time for deep work each week, what ends up happening is I have these random pockets of meetings throughout my day that make it hard for me to find that flow, which I need in order to do strategic work. So it's very important for me to block out my deep work. Mentally, practically, it just makes sense for me to block it out. Step 2 are meetings. Now, if I am traveling for a meeting, I put that travel time on my calendar. One, it gives me an alert both on my phone or my computer that pops up that lets me know I need to be leaving in order to get to a certain meeting somewhere. I live in New York City. Travel times are pretty predictable if you're taking public transportation, but if I need to take a taxi somewhere, if it's rush hour, if there's a special session, there's certain times of the year where traffic is just really horrible in the city. So I make sure to book travel time. I also have a recurring meeting hold for when I need to pick up my son from school. So one time I was really kind of in a zone and in a flow and kind of forgot that I needed to leave at a certain time to go pick him up. And it was traffic. And, there's nothing sadder for me than when my son is waiting at school for me to pick him up. And so I make sure to block that time out. I am also putting meeting prep time on my calendar. So if I know I have a meeting coming up, I will put 10, 15, 20 minutes before that meeting to do any prep on the prospect, on the partner, whoever it is that I'm meeting with, to just review where they are, who they are, so that I can walk into the meeting, take a deep breath, feel really calm, cool, collected, and be my best self and feel prepared. So that's the meetings bucket. The next bucket is the organizing bucket. So this is when I am doing all of the organizing for the next week. So looking at our calendar, do I need a babysitter lined up for anything? Have they confirmed? I'm big on meal prep, or not necessarily prep, but planning. We eat dinner a lot at home. So, what meals am I making for the week? When I'm doing this calendar, it's typically when I'm taking inventory of our pantry, of our freezer to see what I can make for dinner, check if I'm missing any ingredients. This is aside, but I love Pinterest for recipes. I've gotten rid of virtually all of my cookbooks and I use Pinterest. And so I put on my to-do calendar whatever I'm making for dinner that night. So the night before, I know what I need to take out of the freezer to defrost. I know if there are certain parts of the dinner that I can make ahead. I put the link to whatever recipe I'm using or recipes I'm using in the calendar note that says, dinner tonight, meatloaf, tacos, pulled pork, whatever it might be. So this whole process between writing everything down, figuring out the buckets, delegating whatever it might be, putting things in my calendar, this whole process can take anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes, which is some of the best time investment that I can make for myself during the week. It is so important for me to do it. And if you are not planning your calendar out weekly, I please, please, please ask you to give it a try. I am typically doing this on a Friday or a Sunday. That is what works best for me. And I bounce back and forth between the 2 days. Let me tell you what I like about doing it on each day. What I like about planning my calendar on a Friday is that I can get all of this done before the weekend. And so I can kind of walk into my weekend worry free without all of these things, this to-do list swirling in my head. And so I can be much more present. I know that I have set myself up for the following week. When I do it on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday is kind of our family day. We're kind of resetting everything up for the week anyways. And so it eliminates those Sunday scaries for me. And I tend to sleep really well at night when I know I am set up for the week. The best thing I can do is do this as a Friday afternoon exercise and then revisit my calendar on Sunday evening to really get myself pumped up for the week. Now, that is sort of the system. I have tried many times and have been unsuccessful to soup up the system. I have tried color coding based on personal tasks, work things, deep work. I just haven't gotten to that level yet. One of my clients, Lauren, who runs a PR firm, I drool over her calendar. She has everything color coded, mapped out. She is basically my calendar goals. I'm just not there yet. So if color coding things makes it easier for you, absolutely. I'm all for that. I hope to be that person sometime soon. Another tip when setting up my calendar is I invite my husband or my friends or whoever it is to meeting invites where they need to be paying attention. So for school holiday breaks that are on our calendar, I put it on my husband's work calendar. For date nights or doctor appointments, or if my mom is going to be into town and we have things planned, it's on her calendar. I try to kind of not be the gatekeeper of the calendar in my family. That's really hard for me to do because I tend to just do the things. If I can communicate what needs to get done, it tends to be a lot easier for me to not be the only one who knows what's going on in our family's life. So, tip, tip there. Now, your schedule should reflect you, who you are, how you work, what you value, the life you want to lead. And so here's my takeaway for this is your calendar is not just a place for meetings. This is the blueprint for your life. This is how you are spending your time, and our time is our most valuable asset. When you schedule with intention, when you stop letting your to-dos run you, you can really take control and ownership of your time and how you spend it. And isn't that what we're all looking for? So please treat your calendar like it is your highest priority to-do list. Put your energy where it matters, protect your focus, and carve out that time and that space for the life and the business that you want. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope you will now go back and look at your calendar with a renewed sense of purpose and focus and energy. And if this episode has helped you, please do me a favor, rate it. Give us a rating, give us a review. It really helps other people discover and find our show. And I appreciate you for it. I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of Girls Make Bank. If you like what you've heard, please remember to subscribe, like, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Please review and share our show to help spread the word and help your girls make bank. And I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram, or visit honeybeesgroup.co. Until next time, friends.